let's get into some of the features that people have gripes about. It does say there's MPC sampling. So that leads somebody to believe that you're going to be able to do things exactly how you can do them on the MPC. That's not the case. Yes, it does have pretty much the exact sampler. So if I go into menu, you can see right there, here's a sampler. It's almost the exact sampler, but it's not quite, because if you see down here, you're missing certain features. All right, so you can't sample and then add your sample to your pads how you want right from here. So it's kind of a different process. Okay, so you get your sample in there, and then what you do, it will still give you the thing that says, I'll just show you, I'll record nothing. All right, so it's still going to give you this. You can do a new sample, or you could add it to a track. So if I wanted to add it to that kit, I could add it to that kit and assign it to a pad. Now that's normal, like an MPC. All right, so if I wanted to keep it, I would keep it or whatever. All right, so the thing is, if you come back over to your menu and then go to sample edit, you're gonna get your sample editor, and you could do sample editing just like an MPC to an extent. So these two features are exactly the same up here on the screen. Now the issue people are having is, if I say, for example, push threshold, and, or even better, I could use regions. So now you can see that there's 16 regions on here. So if I wanted to audition these, I can't audition these with the pads, or at least there's no way I found that you can audition these. So this is one of the things where it's like, yes, you have MPC sample editing. This is the exact sample editor, okay? But you can't play them on the pads until you assign them to a program. All right, so what I would recommend doing is going ahead and just going to process or convert. All right, and then I would assign these to a new drum track. All right, you could pick whatever. If you want to do pad parameters, that might be better for you. It just depends on how you want to work. All right, if you use pad parameters, it's kind of better whenever you're copying pads over and, you know, do it, right? So I got those 16 in there. All right, so if I go back to my matrix, you can see right here, now I can play them with the pads. So the cool thing is, now if you have that selected, if you come back over here and then go back to your sample editor, pads. So now you have access to get them on the pads. All right, so now you can basically go in there and set your points however you want, your start and end points to your slices. All right, so yes, it does have MPC sample editing, but it's definitely different than the MPC, whereas you don't have access to the pads right away. You have to assign them to a program first, and then you get access to your pads. And you know, you could adjust things normally at that point, just like an MPC. To me, this isn't a deal breaker. This isn't that big of a deal, but for you, it might be a big deal. So it just depends. I do some sampling. I'm not like everything in my sequence is in a sample, so it's not that big of a deal to me. So there you go. That's how you would get access to your pads. All right, so that's that point there. I just wanted to address that in this unofficial review. Okay, so let me go back to my matrix. My next thing is, like, when you're performing live with this thing, you got to really be conscientious and plan this thing out, your launches out. Because if you actually want to perform with an instrument and do looping, there's no foot pedal switch that I can see. So you have to launch with your fingers. So you would have to program your sequences in a way to where you're not like taking your hand away from your instrument to launch a different scene. All right, so that's what I learned yesterday when I made my first song. I kind of wanted to play the guitar live and do different things live, but I figured out there's no like way to, that I found yet, there's no way to link scenes together. So you really have to plan your scene out to be however long you want to play your instrument live or what have you, if that makes sense. So if I wanted to do a solo for like 16 bars, I would have to make sure that everything in whatever scene I was working with was 16 bars long, at least, to play the solo. So I don't have to worry about, okay, 8 bars is up, I got to switch it to the next one, take my hand away from my instrument, and go to the next one. Now, I don't think that this can work yet with USB controllers or MIDI controllers. So a solution would be make it to where you could launch things with a foot pedal with a USB controller or a MIDI controller of some sort. So you could just click it with your foot and launch that scene. Now, I haven't found a way to do that, and I don't see anything in the menu for that. There's no box here that says MIDI controller where you can assign your own MIDI controller to it. So to me, that is a negative about this, but it would be cool to have some kind of way to trigger the scenes with a foot pedal, or be able to trigger a clip and start recording with a foot pedal. So you could trigger the clip and then start playing, and then trigger the quick clip to stop it and then have it repeat, or, you know, stuff like that. Just different things like that. So to me, that was kind of a downer, but in the future, I'll just have to make more preparation. Okay, so I'll have to make more preparation on where I want to put my guitars at and stuff like that. So being that I've only had this for a week, I'll plan better in the future. Anyhow, there is a looper on here. You know, there are on the fly things that you can use, like reverse, you know, you can overdub, stuff like that. All right, so let me talk about the knobs for a second. I really like these knobs. They feel good. They're continuous, so you don't have to worry about, like, you know, resetting them or jumping or anything. They are continuous knobs. So if I go to volume, for example, okay, so now I have access to the volume of each of these tracks. Now I don't have to be on the screen to have access to them either. So if I get out of there, you can see that they're still working. So these knobs kind of have their own thought process, if you will. But if you do hit screen, they will lock to the screen and whatever's going on the screen. So for example, I'm on the matrix here. If I, let's see, if I pick a plugin, and if I go to the track edit, now they'll be on that plugin. All right, and you can also put them on track, so they'll correlate to whatever track you have selected. Now I did notice that they are really sensitive. Like you can see right here in the oscillator, there's like a bunch of oscillators, but you got to really like go slow to be able to access them all. So if you like turn it, they go really, really fast, which, I mean, you just got to get used to them, I suppose. But if you select that and then use this encoder, you could go one by one. I do believe. Is it one by one? Let's see. Maybe if I push shift and then turn the knob, they'll be one by one. Yeah, there you go. All right, and that's another little tip for you. If you hold shift and turn this knob, things are precise. So whatever the red box is on, this data dial controls. They call it a data dial. So it controls whatever that box is on. So if you just turn it, you can see how big the change is. But if you hold shift and turn it, now we got more detail. We can actually see everything that's going on. So there you go there. Now these knobs are super sensitive, so you have to really try. So therefore, these knobs have a really high resolution. All right, so you just got to be aware of that. And another point about the knobs, which is good, you can assign knobs like I was showing you earlier. So if you push shift and knobs, you can go ahead and assign them. All right, you could pick the different modes up here and see what everything's assigned to. All right, so if you wanted quick access to certain things in project mode, you could put it in project mode and assign certain things. Like if you wanted like a cutoff filter to a certain synth, you should be able to assign it there. I'm assuming if this is the same as like the MPC one, you should be able to assign whatever you want inside of here. All right, you see parameter, yeah, oscillator mix, oscillator select. You pick whatever you want to assign a knob to and you select it there. If I wanted oscillator mix, assign it right there, and you can see it showed up right there. All right, so now whenever I go to that track, I can mess with the oscillator mix with that macro right there. All right, and I can mess with it at wherever I'm at within the project. So that's the good thing about the knobs. You could be anywhere and I can still mess with that oscillator mix. All right, now let's talk about the touch screen. The touch screen is definitely good on here. I can see everything really well. It is responsive. I can tap there, it changes. All right, the only thing that was throwing me off with the touch screen is this mode. So if you have a bunch of tracks in here, actually it was not the tracks mode one, it was the mixer for the drum program. So if I go to the mixer for the drum program, you can see pad 9 isn't on the screen. So I can't really affect it without touching the screen. So I was occasionally touching here and then turning, you can see right there, I was trying just to move it and it was putting that down. So it's just something you get used to. Now it does reset. So if I go like that and go down and over, it does reset back. You can see the volume knob was changing. Let me show you that again. So if I want to move this over, I had to touch the screen and move it. You can see when I touched the screen, it selected that volume and it started to change it, right? But whenever I scooted over, it reset it. So I was kind of thrown off at first whenever I was doing that, because like, oh, I'm going to change the volume. So that takes some getting used to. All right, just so you're aware about that. But pretty much other than that, I mean, the touch screen is fine. It does take a little getting used to, just like touching it correctly. If you don't, all right, so if you don't touch it correctly, you think that you're touching it, you're not really touching it, which I'm not having that issue now, but all right. But particularly like if I go to load, and then if I go to, that was a really long second. If I go into load and tap on here, sometimes it takes a second to get going and you can't tell if you tapped on it. So you might tap it again because you don't think you tapped on it. All right, so I think a good example of this, if you go to here, all right, and then go to here, go to new, tap new, don't save. See, it takes a second sometimes to do some things because it's processing, but sometimes it doesn't tell you it's processing, so you think you have to tap it again. So for example, let's go ahead and load colors. All right, did I select it or didn't I? I did. You can see how it took a second. Okay, now we're getting into it. So that's just one thing to be conscious of when is particularly when you're loading stuff. Other than that, the touchscreen is fine. Other than that, I think the touchscreen is fine. It's definitely responds. All right, so one of the final things I just want to talk about is the hardware as far as the inputs and the outputs, things like that. So I actually did sample for the song that I made yesterday. And basically what I did is I just took my iPad and I sampled right into it and it came out really well. Okay. I just put this into my iPad and I put left and right there. I set the levels and it came out really well. Again, if you go to menu and then sampler, all right, you got your sampler and then there's knobs on the back. You just set your levels with the knobs on the back and then you can record whatever you want right into it. So you can record line level, instrument level, and it does have phantom power for mic. So that's really good. All right, and I also recorded guitar right into it. And I didn't use a sampler, I just recorded it right onto a sequence. Or right onto a clip, I should say. All right, so if I go over here, you know, you can add an audio track right there and you're fine. You can record right into a clip, whatever clip you want. So basically if you arm the track, tap right there, you boom. I can start recording the guitar and it's going to be 4 bars. I think I put it default for 4 bars. Oh, actually I put default on in. So you could actually change the default of record. So if you push shift and record, you could do fixed record length and however many bars you want. So if you only want it 2 bars, you can make it 2 bars. All right, and then you got to make sure that you arm it. So you do that by pushing record arm and then tapping the track you want. So for example, if I was playing, I could just hit record. All right, so if I was playing, push record arm and then tap a clip, and I could record guitar right onto that. And then once it hits 2 bars, it's going to start playing. So that's really, really cool that you could do that. So you could definitely, if you planned it out right, you could definitely get some live jams going with this thing without a problem. All right, now like I was saying, the only thing is you got to really time it out because you saw how it just started playing again and there's no overdub in this mode that I found. You can't overdub on audio tracks. You can overdub on MIDI tracks, but not audio tracks. So I think that's why they included a looper. Excuse me. I think that's why they included the looper, because you can overdub on the looper. All right, but yeah, I recorded my guitar right into it, and I added effects easily, no problem. But that's pretty much what I wanted to cover about this for now. So I'll probably recover this again whenever I get more of an idea of what it could do. And I know that this was all over the place, but I want to give some insight, being that I actually have it in my hands and I, use it to make a song yesterday. So there you go. There's some insight for you. So if there's a feature that you want me to cover, just tell me in the comments and I'll try to cover it for you. I want to present information to you guys. All right. My name is Matt. I'll go ahead and release this video and then I'll get back into my tutorials and things like that. I'll go ahead and put some more about the MPC Live out in a little while, but I kind of want to cover the Force right now because I got my hands on it and I want to kind of share some knowledge. All right, so go ahead and continue to create music and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.